introduction you want to win in life. Learn to read the room before you enter it. Learn to listen to what's not being said. Learn to feel the weight behind a word, the truth behind a smile, the agenda behind a compliment. That's power. That's social intelligence. You've been told that hard work is enough. It's not. Not if you're blind to people. Not if you miss the signals, the traps, the subtle shifts in tone that reveal what's really happening. The battlefield isn't just in business, in relationships, or in negotiations. It's everywhere people exist. And if you walk into that battlefield without armor, without strategy, without clarity, you will lose, again and again. This isn't about being fake. This isn't about manipulating. This is about seeing clearly, responding with strength, moving with purpose. It's about knowing when to speak and when silence is your greatest weapon. It's about controlling your reactions, mastering your presence, and walking into any room with the quiet confidence that you see more than they think you do. Chapter 110, Mastering the Rooms. Own the energy before you speak. You don't wait for the world to recognize your worth. You walk in already knowing it. That's the mindset of someone who owns the energy in the room. Before a word comes out of your mouth, the room has already judged you. Not by your resume, not by your titles, by your presence. And your presence isn't about how loud you speak or how much space you take up. It's about the way you carry yourself when you say. It's about the power of your silence, the weight of your eye contact, the stillness of your control. People feel energy. Long before they understand your story, they've already made a decision about your value. That decision is often unconscious, but it shapes everything. If you walk into a room unsure of yourself, people mirror that uncertainty. If you enter with scattered focus, that chaos bleeds into every interaction. If you carry the weight of insecurity, of trying to prove yourself, that desperation echoes louder than your words ever will. So the question is simple. When you enter a room, what do you bring with you? Strength or uncertainty, discipline or desperation, leadership or noise. Because whether you realize it or not, you are broadcasting something. And if you don't take control of the signal, someone else will define it for you. Mastering the room starts before you even show up. It begins with self-respect. It begins with knowing that you don't need validation to be valuable. It begins with walking in like you belong. Not because someone gave you permission, but because you gave it to yourself. Confidence isn't arrogance. It's calm. It's control. It's the quiet assurance that you can handle yourself in any environment, under any pressure, with any person. Real power is subtle. It's the ability to walk into chaos and not be moved by it. It's knowing who you are, so you don't get lost in what they think. It's entering a space without the need to dominate, because you've already mastered your inner world, and that inner world, your mind, your emotions, your sense of purpose, that's your battlefield. That's where the fight starts. If your thoughts are undisciplined, if your emotions control your behavior, then you're not in charge. Your impulses are. People can sense that. They can smell weakness. They might not say it, but they feel it. That's why the strongest people don't have to say a word to shift the energy in a room. They've already done the work. They've faced their fears. They've trained their focus. They've built themselves to a point where chaos doesn't shake them. It sharpens them. You need to become that kind of person, the one who doesn't enter a room hoping to be accepted, but enters knowing what they bring. The one who can look anyone in the eye without flinching, the one who speaks only when it's time to speak, and who listens with purpose. You want respect. Then you need to stop chasing approval. You want authority. Then you need to stop talking to be heard and start observing to understand. People who speak without awareness lose power. People who listen deeply gain it. To master the room, you have to master yourself, and that requires discipline. The discipline to stay silent when your ego wants to speak. The discipline to hold eye contact when others avoid it. The discipline to stand tall when others try to intimidate. The discipline to breathe slowly when the pressure rises. You train these things like a warrior trains his blade. Every day you don't wait for the opportunity to be ready. You become ready before the opportunity shows up. Don't mistake performance for presence. Anyone can perform, they can act confident, they can posture, they can talk loud. But real presence is deeper than performance. Real presence comes from alignment. When your mind, your emotions, your body, and your mission are all in sync, people feel it. It doesn't need to be explained. It's undeniable. You walk in and people sit up straighter. They don't know why, but something about you demands their attention. That's not magic. That's mastery. This world respects those who respect themselves. You don't get loyalty by demanding it. You earn it by showing strength, not just physical strength, emotional strength. The ability to stay composed, the ability to respond instead of react, the ability to remain grounded when others panic, the ability to say less but mean more. Every room you enter is a test of your presence. It's a chance to command space, not by noise, but by clarity. Too many people walk into a room trying to convince others they belong. They talk too much, they overcompensate, they try to impress. But the ones who truly belong don't waste energy proving it. They just are. Their presence does the talking. Their calmness is louder than someone else's shouting. Their stillness is more powerful than someone else's movement. If you want to rise, stop trying to be noticed. Start being undeniable. You don't get ready by pretending. You get ready by doing the work in silence. You get ready by mastering your breathing, your thoughts, your triggers. You get ready by confronting your weaknesses instead of hiding behind fake confidence. You get ready by accepting discomfort, because you know growth is forged in fire, not comfort. So when you walk into a room, you're not hoping to perform. You're stepping into territory you've already prepared for. Understand this: the room will test you. People will challenge you. There will always be someone trying to pull your energy, provoke your emotion, throw you off balance. But when you've done the work, when you've earned your calm, you won't take the bait. You'll see it for what it is. Noise. You'll let them throw their fire, and you'll walk through it untouched. That's not arrogance. That's precision. That's a mind that doesn't break under pressure. That's presence that cannot be shaken. And it doesn't come easy. You have to train. Every single day, you train by showing up with intention. You train by holding your posture when you feel small. You train by speaking clearly when you're nervous. You train by staying in the moment instead of being pulled by distractions. You train by reminding yourself who you are before you let the world define it for you. That's the grain. That's the difference between those who command respect and those who beg for it. The moment you stop needing the room to validate you, the moment you stop chasing approval, that's the moment your power shows up. You're not desperate. You're not seeking permission. You're not trying to win people over. You're simply grounded in your own identity. And that identity is built through effort, through sweat, through solitude, through discipline. You've faced your own fears. You've outgrown your own weaknesses. And now when you enter a space, you bring something no one else can fake. Authentic power. So before you speak, before you even sit down, ask yourself, what energy am I carrying? What intention am I walking with? What signal am I sending? You can't fake that. You either bring clarity or you bring confusion. You either bring purpose or you bring noise. You either command the room or the room controls you. This isn't just about being liked. This is about being effective. You want to influence? Start by owning your space. You want to lead? Start by leading your own energy. You want to win? Stop trying to prove and start becoming. Show up with depth. Show up with presence. Show up with mastery. And when you do that, you don't need to announce yourself. The room already knows. Let others talk. Let others posture. Let others perform. You stay focused. You stay grounded. You move with precision. Because you're not there to impress. You're there to execute. You're not there to be seen. You're there to be felt. And when your presence is built from discipline, from control, from truth, there's not a room in the world you can't walk into and own. That's how you rise. That's how you win. Master the room by mastering yourself. Chapter 2: The Silent Language. Reading people without words. You think people are honest because they say the right things. You think you understand someone just because they know how to sound right, how to speak the part, how to put together a sentence that impresses. That's your first mistake. Words are noise. Truth lives in silence. Real understanding happens between the lines. If you're only listening to what's being said, you're missing 90% of the conversation, because people are always communicating, even when their mouth is shut. Especially then. You want the social intelligence? Start paying attention to what people aren't saying. Watch the way their eyes shift when the subject changes. Feel the pause before they answer. Notice the tension in their jaw when a specific name is mentioned, the tapping of a foot, the crossing of arms, the delay in response. These are the giveaways. These are the raw signals. And if you can see them, if you can train yourself to stay alert and emotionally neutral while you observe, you gain an edge most people will never have. You have to understand something. Most people don't want to be read. They want to control how they're perceived. That's why they rehearse their stories. That's why they deflect with humor or bury their stress under fake confidence. It's a defense. But the body doesn't lie. Micro-expressions don't lie. The hesitation before a response, the way someone touches their neck when they're nervous, the way their shoulders slump when you mention accountability, that's the real them. Most people don't even realize they're revealing themselves. But you will, because you're not just listening. You're studying, you're reading, you're decoding. This isn't about being a mind reader. This is about pattern recognition. It's about being present enough to notice what everyone else misses. People say, "I'm fine," but their tone betrays them. Their eyes don't match their words. Their posture curls in like they're bracing for impact. That's not fine. That's fatigue. That's pain. That's a storm behind the smile. You don't need to call it out, but you need to see it. Because when you can see people clearly, you stop being manipulated by their noise. You move smarter. You respond better. You protect your energy and your vision. Most people are reactive. They fall for appearances. They trust too quickly, or they overcorrect and become cold and closed. You're not doing either. You're learning to assess, not assume. You're learning to watch people like a soldier scans a battlefield, aware of every movement, every anomaly, every subtle shift in tone. Why? Because in life, people are your environment. They can be assets or threats. But you can't tell the difference if you're distracted, emotional, or desperate for connection. Silence teaches you everything. The person who talks too much, what are they hiding? The person who avoids eye contact, what are they afraid of? The person who always has a story, always needs validation, what are they compensating for? If you're listening deeply, these answers become obvious. You start to see the fear under arrogance, the insecurity under charm, the manipulation behind compliments. And when you see it, you stop falling for it. You stop being played. You don't judge people for being flawed. Everyone has wounds. But social intelligence means you navigate those wounds with wisdom. You don't expose them. You don't attack them. But you don't ignore them either. You use your awareness to guide your behavior. You speak less. You move with patience. You build leverage, not through force, but through understanding. You're not trying to win every interaction. You're not trying to dominate people. You're trying to understand, because when you understand someone, you gain clarity. Clarity is freedom. Clarity is safety. Clarity gives you the ability to respond with purpose instead of reacting with emotion. And when everyone else is blinded by ego, by anxiety, by social masks, you become the one who sees clearly. The skill of reading people isn't about tactics. It's about attention. It's about controlling your own energy so you can feel theirs without distortion. If you walk into a room full of insecurity, trying to prove your worth, you won't see anything clearly. Your perception will be clouded by your own hunger for validation. But if you walk in with composure, with awareness, with stillness, then you'll see what they don't want you to see. That's real vision. You have to train for this. Every day. You start by observing people in silence. Watch them in meetings. Watch them in social settings. Don't just hear the words. Feel the energy. Track the inconsistencies. Ask yourself, what are they showing me, even if they don't realize it? You do this enough, it becomes second nature. You'll walk into a room and feel the undercurrents before anyone speaks. You'll know who's nervous, who's dominant, who's hiding something, and who's being real. When you get to that level, conversations shift. You'll speak less, but your words will hit harder. People will sense that they can't lie to you, even if they try. They'll feel that you're tuned in, that you're not playing the same game everyone else is. That makes you powerful. That makes you unshakable. And it makes people respect you, even if they don't fully understand why. This isn't about becoming cold or detached. It's about becoming conscious. You're no longer reacting to surface signals. You're responding to real data. You're protecting yourself from emotional manipulation. You're leading conversations with intention. And you're choosing your circle wisely. Not based on how people present themselves, but based on what their silent language reveals. You'll begin to notice how people look at others when they think no one's watching. You'll see who's insecure when attention shifts. You'll spot the envy behind fake smiles, the subtle hostility in fake kindness. And the moment you do, you adjust, you do. You don't expose them. You just move differently. That's high-level strategy. That's mental discipline. Stop assuming words equal truth. Stop thinking charisma equals character. Some of the most charming people are also the most dangerous. And some of the quietest people carry the deepest wisdom. You'll only know the difference if you shut up long enough to observe. Don't rush to fill silence. Sit in it. That's where truth leaks out. Let others be loud. Let others sell themselves. You stay grounded. You stay sharp. You stay aware. And in that stillness you gather information. You gather power. You gather insight that will serve you in moments they never see coming. Because while they're trying to impress you, you're already 10 moves ahead. Reading people is not about control. It's about clarity. Clarity in who you trust. Clarity in how you move. Clarity in what you allow into your space. When someone lies to you with their mouth, but tells the truth with their body, believe the body. When someone flatters you but hides resentment in their eyes, trust the eyes. When someone laughs, but their energy doesn't follow, believe the energy. Always. You're no longer guessing. You're no longer naive. You're seeing the game. You're playing it with precision. That's social intelligence. That's how leaders rise. That's how warriors protect their mission. You build this ability with silence, with discipline, with deep observation. Every day, you observe patterns. You test responses. You read the signs. You listen. Not just to the voice, but to the tension behind it, the rhythm, the eye contact, the body position. Over time, this becomes a skill that elevates you above the noise. People respect the one who understands them more than the one who talks over them. They follow the one who sees through confusion. And they fear the one who cannot be deceived. That's you now. You're becoming that. Because you're learning the real language. The silent one. The one that never lies. The one that reveals everything. You're not guessing anymore. You're not taking people at face value. You're learning to feel the truth. And in a world full of masks, distractions, performances, and games, truth is your greatest advantage. Don't just hear them, read them. Chapter 3 in Emotional Radar, Tuning into the Unspoken. If you want to be powerful in this world, stop just hearing people. Start feeling them. Because the real messages aren't in the words, they're in the emotion. Most people don't say what they mean. They don't admit what they fear. They don't express what they truly want. But that doesn't mean they're not telling you. It just means they're speaking in a different frequency, a deeper one only the tuned in can hear. This is where your emotional radar comes in. If you want to navigate life with strength, strategy, and self-mastery, you need to tune into that unspoken current. Everyone is sending signals. Emotional signals, some loud, some buried, some polished, others raw and messy. If your radar isn't trained, you'll miss everything that matters. You'll take people at face value. You'll trust smiles that hide resentment. You'll overlook hesitation that reveals conflict. You'll ignore tones that scream frustration while the mouth says, "I'm fine." You'll fall for the image, and ignore the emotion behind it, and that mistake will cost you relationships, time, peace, even your mission. Training your emotional radar means developing an internal sensitivity, not weakness, awareness, not empathy without boundaries, but perception with power. You start noticing the small cracks in conversations, the shift in energy when someone walks, the nervous tension before a lie, the insecurity behind arrogance. You hear the silence that follows a compliment. You feel the weight behind certain words. You begin to detect where someone's coming from emotionally. Not just what they're saying, but what they're carrying. This is how you move beyond surface interactions. This is how you position yourself where others can't. You're not guessing. You're reading. You're locked in. Most people are so consumed with what they want to say, they don't listen. They can't. They're reactive, impulsive, emotionally noisy. You're different now. You've made the decision to tune in. You've decided that understanding is your edge, that perception is your weapon. And perception isn't passive. It's a discipline. You practice being still when others rush. You breathe slower so your awareness gets sharper. You control your emotional triggers so you can feel what's real. If someone's talking, you don't just absorb their words. You monitor their tone, their volume, their rhythm, their breath. You ask yourself, what's behind this? Where is this coming from? What are they trying not to say? What are they trying to protect? People leak emotion. It seeps through their body language. It echoes in their voice. It flashes through their eyes. If you're watching, if you're feeling, you'll catch it. And when you catch it, you control the interaction. Not through manipulation, but through presence. You know when to push. You know when to pull back. You know when to speak truth. You know when silence is more powerful, because your radar is active, and the truth is always talking. You just have to be disciplined enough to feel it. But here's the hard truth. You can't read others until you learn to read yourself. If your radar is jammed with your own unresolved emotions, you won't hear anyone else clearly. You'll project. You'll misinterpret. You'll confuse your fear for their intention. You'll turn their sadness into an attack. You'll miss every signal because your own system is in chaos. That's why self-mastery is step one. You learn your emotional rhythms. You study your reactions. You track your triggers. You identify when your judgment is clouded by insecurity, by past wounds, by unresolved anger. And then you clean it up. The cleaner your own emotional channel, the more accurate your radar becomes. You no longer walk into situations with static. You walk in clear, steady, and grounded. And because you're clear, you can see what others can't. You can tell when someone's deflecting. You can feel when someone's breaking. You can hear the truth that's being swallowed, and that gives you power. Not to manipulate, but to move strategically, to help when it's time to help, to walk away when it's time to walk away, to say what needs to be said when it needs to be said. Emotional radar means you don't get played, because manipulation only works on people who can't feel the shift. But you feel everything. You feel when someone's overcompensating. You feel when guilt is hiding under kindness. You feel when someone is uncomfortable but trying to pretend. You don't need evidence. You just know. And that knowing becomes your superpower. You walk into meetings and feel who's aligned and who's not. You sit across from someone and know if they're telling you the truth. You walk into a room and feel the power dynamics without a word being said. That's not intuition. That's not magic. That's trained emotional radar. That's years of observation, presence, emotional discipline, and inner work. And anyone can build it, but most won't, because most are too distracted, too reactive, too desperate for attention to ever tune in deep enough to see. But you're not most people. You've chosen to walk a different path. One of strength, not noise. One of clarity, not confusion. One of awareness, not assumption. You understand that real social intelligence doesn't come from talking well. It comes from listening deeply. And the deepest listening has nothing to do with ears. It has everything to do with presence. When someone says, "I don't care," but their whole body is tense, you feel it. When someone says, "I trust you," but they can't look you in the eye, you know. When someone jokes too much, flirts too loud, brags too often, you see what they're running from. This doesn't make you better than anyone, but it makes you sharper, smarter, safer. Because you don't buy the cover, you study the content. This skill serves you in business. It serves you in relationships. It serves you in leadership, because people want to be seen, but they're afraid to show themselves. You become the person who can see without judging, hear without interrupting, feel without reacting. And because you can do that, people trust you. Not because you say the right things, but because they sense you're tuned in, you're present, you're here. And presence is the rarest form of power in a world addicted to distraction. Don't let the world numb your radar. Don't let social media train you to only care about optics. Train yourself to care about essence, to feel people at their core, and protect your energy in the process. Because just like you can sense emotion, you can also be infected by it. That's why boundaries matter. You feel the pain, but you don't carry it. You recognize the manipulation, but you don't absorb it. You hear the fear, but you don't let it become yours. That's the discipline. That's the edge. And over time, you'll stop being surprised. People will show you who they are long before they tell you. The energy never lies. It always arrives before the words do, and you'll feel it first. You'll adjust first. You'll protect your peace first. That's not paranoia. That's preparation. That's what it means to be locked in, built from the inside out. So when others say, "I didn't see that coming," you'll know why. Their radar was off. Their awareness was low. They trusted the noise. You felt the shift. You watched the eyes. You tracked the tone. You stayed steady. And because of that, you didn't get blindsided. You moved with intelligence. You responded with control. And in a world that rewards performance but punishes blindness, you won. That's the path. That's the calling. Emotional radar isn't soft. It's not fluffy. It's a weapon, a survival tool, a leadership trait, a high-level discipline that separates those who guess from those who know, those who react from those who read, those who fall for the story from those who sense the truth. You are no longer confused. You are no longer emotional without control. You are no longer walking through life disconnected. You are awake. You are attuned. You are precise. You feel the current. You trust the signal. You move accordingly, because your radar is sharp, and that makes you unstoppable. Chapter 14, The Power of Pause. Responding, not reacting. Power isn't in how fast you speak. It's in how calm you remain. It's in the pause. That space between stimulus and response. That moment of stillness that separates the impulsive from the intentional, the reactive from the composed. That pause, tiny as it may seem, is where your control lies. It's where your clarity is born. It's the difference between ruining a moment and owning it. It's where your strength steps forward and your ego steps back. Most people are slaves to their reactions. Someone disrespects them, they snap. Someone challenges them, they get defensive. Someone doubts them, they over-explain. It's all emotion, no discipline. All impulse, no thought. They speak just to fill silence, act just to prove themselves, lash out just to protect pride. And then later, they regret it. Later, they replay it. Later, they realize they gave their power away again. The one who reacts fastest is often the one who loses, because reaction is instinct, but response is strategy. You want power. Learn to pause. Learn to let the noise come and not move. Learn to hear the insult, feel the tension, see the game, and do nothing until you choose. That's control. That's composure. That's emotional intelligence at its peak. Not flinching, not folding, not being baited into behavior that costs you your image, your position, your clarity. You don't need to prove anything when you're grounded in who you are. And people who know who they are don't react. They assess. A pause is more than silence. It's a tool. It's a filter. It's a reset button. It gives you time to catch your breath, to realign, to ask the most powerful question in social intelligence. What's really happening here? Is it about you, or are they projecting? Is it disrespect, or are they just afraid? Are they challenging you, or are they crying out for attention in the only way they know how? The truth rarely lives on the surface. But you won't find it if you rush to respond. You'll only find it if you pause long enough to see it. You've been trained to respond quickly. Society rewards fast answers, instant reactions, rapid comebacks. But all that noise is killing your clarity. Real strength isn't loud, it's measured. And that pause, that second of silence, it's where real power accumulates, because in that second you are gathering data. You're watching, listening, feeling, and you're choosing, not reacting. Choosing your move based on what serves your purpose, not your pride. The pause protects you from your worst self. It keeps your emotions from making decisions that your mind hasn't approved. It guards you against saying what can't be unsaid, doing what can't be undone. And when you make that pause a habit, you stop getting played. People lose interest in baiting you because it no longer works. They throw shade, you don't bite. They test you, you don't flinch. They try to pull you off your center, you stay still. That unnerves them. That makes them see you differently. That earns their respect, even if they never say it. Think about it. How many times have you said something you didn't mean because you felt attacked? How many times have you made a weak decision just to escape discomfort? How many opportunities have you ruined by reacting instead of reading the moment? Too many. That's why you're here now, to break that cycle, to discipline your response, to reclaim your control. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It means you're thinking. Stillness doesn't mean surrender. It means you're watching. Slowness doesn't mean fear. It means precision. The moment you understand that, your behavior changes. You stop jumping to defend yourself. You stop trying to explain everything. You stop reacting to every shift in tone or expression. You wait. You analyze. You let the moment unfold. You choose your words like a sniper picks a target. Only when it's necessary. Only when it matters. You're not here to be impulsive. You're here to be intelligent, and intelligent people don't waste energy reacting to things beneath them. They don't get flustered by every comment. They don't feel the need to jump into every fire. They let people talk. They let emotions rise and fall. And when the noise settles, they move once decisively with purpose. The pause gives you room to see the full picture, to notice the patterns, to hear what's not being said, to realize when someone's pushing your buttons on purpose, to detect when the tension is a setup, not a signal, to recognize when someone is bluffing strength they don't really have. And when you start seeing clearly, you start moving smarter, you stop swinging emotionally and start striking with intention. But the pause isn't easy. It takes discipline. It takes practice. It takes a deep understanding of yourself, because when you're insecure, silence feels like weakness. When you're emotionally undisciplined, stillness feels like suffocation. When you're addicted to being right, the pause feels like surrender. But it's none of those things. It's maturity. It's wisdom. It's the act of rising above the chaos instead of being consumed by it. You learn this by catching yourself in the moment, by noticing when your heart races, when your jaw clenches, when your mind starts spinning with arguments and defenses. That's your signal. Pause, breathe, step back mentally, ask yourself, if I react now, who benefits? If the answer is your ego, pause longer. If the answer is your enemy, say nothing. And only when the answer is your mission, only when speaking aligns with your values, your purpose, your direction, do you respond. And even then, your response is measured, not loud, not desperate, but strong, calm, deliberate. The kind of response that leaves no opening for escalation. The kind of response that commands respect because it was earned through composure. Anyone can yell, anyone can argue, but only the disciplined can pause, observe, and decide. There will be moments when that pause is the only thing that saves you. Moments when your entire reputation hinges on how you handle tension. Moments when people are watching to see if you crack, if you fold, if you can be pushed. Don't give them what they want. Give them discipline. Give them restraint. Give them the silence that says, I see through this, and I'm not moving. That silence becomes your signature. People learn quickly that you're not the one to provoke. You're not the one to rattle. And more than that, they begin to respect you, not because you're the loudest, but because you're the most centered. That kind of respect is rare. It's earned in moments of heat, not calm. It's forged in the fire of confrontation, not in comfort. And it begins with the pause. The pause changes everything. It transforms conversations. It de-escalates conflict. It flips the power dynamic. Suddenly, the person who came in aggressive finds themselves off balance. Because you didn't react. You didn't give them the fight they were hoping for. You held your ground with silence. And that silence said everything. You're not just reacting to energy, you're directing it. You're not absorbing chaos. You're filtering it. You're not ruled by emotion. You're guided by principle. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you dangerous in the best way. Because when others lose themselves, you find clarity. When others erupt, you stay calm. And that calm isn't passive, it's lethal. Master the pause, and you master your presence. Master the pause, and you master your relationships. Master the pause, and you become the kind of person who walks into a room and commands attention without saying a word. Because your energy says, I don't need to prove anything. I'm already in control. So the next time pressure rises, the next time you feel the pull to react, to defend, to argue, to explain, stop. Pause. Remember who you are. Remember what you stand for. Remember what you're building. And then act only from that place. Never from emotion. Never from weakness. Never from ego. Because the one who controls the pause controls the outcome. And now, that's you. Chapter 50. Decode the mask. See who they really are. Everyone wears a mask. Some do it to survive. Others do it to manipulate. And many don't even realize they're wearing one at all. The world teaches people to hide, to blend in, to perform, to filter their truth through layers of fear, insecurity, and image. Most people become so used to wearing the mask that they forget what they look like underneath. And if you take them at face value, you'll be fooled every time. That's why you have to see deeper. That's why you have to decode the mask. The mask isn't the problem. It's human nature to guard vulnerability. It's human nature to protect ourselves from judgment. But if you want to move smart in life, in business, in relationships, you have to train yourself to see the person beneath the performance. You can't afford to be Nava. You can't afford to take every smile as sincerity, every compliment as loyalty, every title as credibility. The mask can be anything: charm, confidence, humor, silence, aggression, kindness, and behind it, something very different, something raw, something real. To decode the mask, you need more than awareness, you need emotional discipline. Because the moment you get emotionally involved, your clarity starts to fade. If you're too eager to connect, you'll overlook the signs. If you're too hungry for validation, you'll believe what you want to hear. That's how people get played. That's how they get manipulated. They see what they want to see instead of what's actually there. But you're not doing that anymore. You're not looking to be impressed. You're looking to understand. You study people like a strategist, his enemy. You watch how they speak when they're comfortable and when they're not. You observe how their energy shifts when the topic gets personal. You notice the disconnect between their words and their behavior. You pick up on the inconsistencies. You catch the contradictions. You feel the tension that their mask tries to hide. The real them slips out in moments of pressure, in moments of distraction, in moments where the mask loosens because they got too relaxed or too emotional. And when it does, you're ready to see it. This isn't about judgment. This is about discernment. It's not about being cold or suspicious. It's about being clear. You're not here to expose people. You're here to protect yourself. You're here to build relationships based on truth, not illusion. And to do that, you have to stop confusing the mask with the person. You have to realize that everyone is hiding something. Pain, fear, shame, a wound they've never dealt with, and that hidden piece controls more of their behavior than anything they admit. The person who seems overly confident, that might be insecurity. The one who acts unbothered, they might be drowning in shame. The one who's always nice, always agreeable, always smiling, that could be fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of being truly seen. You start to recognize that the loudest people are often the ones struggling most with self-worth. That silence doesn't always mean wisdom. Sometimes it means fear. That humor can be a distraction. That kindness can be a disguise. And you learn not to take things at face value. You don't confront the mask directly. You let it reveal itself. You let it run its course. Because the more someone talks, the more someone acts, the more they try to maintain the image. They start to slip. They contradict themselves. Their body language betrays them. Their timing gets off. Their tone exposes the emotion they were trying to hide. And when it does, you don't react. You just observe. You take note. You don't accuse. You confirm. And you keep moving from a place of strategy, not assumption. This makes you dangerous in the best way. Because while others get caught in drama, in betrayal, in confusion, you stay ahead. You don't chase potential. You don't get attached to the image. You see people for what they are, not what they present. And that keeps you clear. That keeps you powerful. That keeps you in control of your time, your emotions, your environment. There's a reason people feel uncomfortable around someone who sees through them. It's because exposure is terrifying to the unprepared. They've spent so long crafting the mask that the thought of being truly seen feels like death to their identity. That's why people respect silence. That's why they fear observation, because silence sees what noise tries to hide. And you've learned to use silence like a scalpel, cutting through the illusion, revealing the truth, and doing it all without raising your voice or breaking your calm. But to decode others, you must first decode yourself. You have to ask, what mask have I been wearing? What do I hide when I feel small? What do I project when I want to be accepted? What version of me shows up when I'm scared of being rejected? You confront your own mask, not to shame yourself, but to sharpen yourself. Because the more honest you are with yourself, the harder it becomes for others to deceive you. When you understand your own triggers, you stop being fooled by others who play on them. When you've acknowledged your own wounds, you stop mistaking someone else's attention for love. When you've identified your own need for approval, you stop falling for charm disguised as care. You become immune to manipulation because you've seen the tactics in yourself. You've dismantled your own mask, piece by piece, and now you walk into rooms with awareness, not performance. Decoding the mask isn't about being suspicious. It's about being prepared. Because once you understand the human need to be accepted, you start to see how deeply people will go to hide the parts of themselves they think are unworthy. They'll lie without knowing it. They'll fake confidence. They'll mimic strength. They'll rehearse kindness. But beneath all that, there's truth. And if you've done the work, you'll see it faster than most. You won't need weeks to understand someone. You'll feel it in the first few minutes, because energy doesn't lie. Timing doesn't lie. Eyes don't lie. The key is to stay grounded. Don't let someone's mask trigger yours. Don't let their performance pull you into a performance of your own. Stay still, stay calm. Let them show you who they are. Let the conversation breathe. Let the silence stretch. That's when the real person shows up. When they get uncomfortable. When the image starts to crack. That's when truth starts to leak through. Not in the rehearsed answers, but in the reactions. Not in the introductions, but in the emotional slip-ups. That's where you look. That's what you feel. Over time, you develop a new kind of sight. You look past the words, past the role. You see people's motives, their patterns, their fears, and that makes you sharper. It makes you harder to deceive, harder to manipulate, harder to throw off track, because while others are reacting to the mask, you're responding to the truth behind it. But you don't always need to call it out. In fact, real mastery is knowing and saying nothing. Sometimes the smartest move is silence. Sometimes it's distance. Sometimes it's simply not engaging, because your power isn't in proving that you see it. It's in using that vision to protect your energy and guide your behavior. You become a mirror. People sense you see them. And in your presence, they either rise to authenticity or retreat into more performance. Either way, you have your answer. You don't force people to be real. You don't beg for honesty. You give space for the truth to breathe, and if it doesn't show up, you walk away with your clarity intact. Decode the mask, and you see the game. You stop being the target. You start being the observer. You become the one who sees clearly while others are still chasing illusions. That's social intelligence. That's mastery. That's strength. Let them perform. Let them pretend. Let them impress. You stay locked in. You stay still. You stay silent. And in that stillness, you hear everything. You feel everything. You know exactly who's in front of you. And you move accordingly. Because you've trained for this. You see through the mask. And now, no one can hide from you. Chapter 60. Strategic empathy. Feel deeply without losing yourself. Empathy is power, but only when you know how to use it. Feel too much, and you drown in other people's chaos. Feel too little, and you become cold, disconnected, and dangerous to yourself and others. The key isn't choosing between emotion and detachment. The key is mastery, strategic empathy. It's the ability to feel deeply and clearly, but not lose yourself in the process. It's reading pain without absorbing it. It's caring without crumbling. It's understanding others while standing firm in your own identity. Most people confuse empathy with emotional surrender. They think caring means carrying. They think compassion means compromising their own boundaries, their own peace, their own direction. That's not strength. That's self-destruction dressed up as virtue. And if you live like that, you'll burn out. You'll lose focus. You'll get stuck in other people's emotions while your own life falls apart. You can't fix anyone while you're falling apart inside. You can't carry their pain and your purpose at the same time. You need separation. You need structure. You need emotional clarity. Strategic empathy means knowing where you end and they begin. It means understanding what someone's going through without letting their experience override your own values. It means you can sit with someone's storm and not mistake it for your own weather. You can hear their pain, but you don't have to bleed with them. You can feel their emotion, but you don't have to absorb their dysfunction. That's not cold. That's wisdom. That's how you help others without destroying yourself in the process. Too many people are emotional sponges. They walk into a room and soak up the pain, the anger, the fear, the insecurity. By the time they leave, they're exhausted and don't even know why. That's emotional unawareness. That's empathy without structure. And it's a trap. It will drain your energy, distort your decisions, and leave you constantly reactive to other people's moods. You need to build a filter. You need to decide what gets in and what stays out. Not everyone deserves access to your heart. Not every story needs to become your mission. Not every sad face is your responsibility. There is a line, and strong people draw it. Not out of coldness, but out of clarity. Because you can't serve anyone if you're always being pulled under. You can't lead if you're constantly shaken by other people's instability. Strategic empathy means you care, but with control. You listen, but with limits. You support, but from strength. You don't lose yourself in their emotion. You don't abandon your truth just to be liked, just to be accepted, just to keep the peace. Because real peace begins inside you, not around you. This level of empathy isn't easy. It takes training. It takes constant awareness. You have to monitor yourself every time you're in emotional environments. When someone vents, you have to ask, am I listening or am I absorbing? When someone's in crisis, ask, am I helping or am I enabling? When someone's energy shifts, ask, am I reacting or remaining grounded? Because it's easy to get pulled in. Emotion is contagious. Chaos wants company. And the undisciplined mind will always mistake sympathy for sacrifice. You're not here to sacrifice your purpose for someone else's comfort. You're not here to carry what's not yours to carry. You're here to lead with presence. That means you feel everything, but you respond only when necessary. You don't rush to fix people just because they're in pain. You don't lose yourself trying to rescue someone who hasn't even decided to save themselves. You respect their journey. You offer truth. You offer strength. But you don't trade your clarity for their comfort. Strategic empathy also means reading between the lines. Not every cry for help is genuine. Some people use vulnerability as a tool, as manipulation, as a way to pull sympathy and power from the unaware. If your empathy isn't trained, you'll fall for it. You'll confuse guilt with connection. You'll confuse emotion with honesty. But if your radar is sharp, if your boundaries are solid, You'll know the difference. You'll know when someone's being real and when they're just performing. It takes courage to not react to every emotional plea. It takes strength to say, I hear you, but I won't carry that for you. It takes clarity to be present with someone's pain without letting it anchor you in a place you don't belong. That's what makes empathy strategic. It's not impulsive. It's not emotional surrender. It's controlled, focused, intentional. You don't just feel, you evaluate. You decide how much energy you'll give. You decide how far you'll go. You decide whether to engage or walk away. That's power. That's responsibility. You also learn to stop expecting yourself from other people. Just because you show up with truth and respect doesn't mean they will. Just because you would never manipulate someone emotionally doesn't mean others won't try it on you. Empathy without discernment will leave you confused. It'll make you believe someone's pain is a free pass to hurt you. It's not. It never is. You can understand someone and still say, no. You can feel their emotion and still protect your peace. You can care without giving them control. That's the balance you must master. Feel deeply, but move wisely. Be compassionate, but be strong. Stay open, but stay protected. Let your heart feel, but never let it lead you off your path. Strategic empathy isn't soft. It's surgical. It's precise. It's the kind of empathy that allows you to be a rock in a world of waves, unshaken, grounded, clear, present, alive, but never lost. This skill is rare. That's why those who have it stand out. They walk into emotionally charged rooms and remain centered. They listen without interrupting. They feel without absorbing. They help without enabling. People gravitate to them, not because they're emotionally reactive, but because they're emotionally reliable. That's who you're becoming. Someone who can walk through emotional chaos and not be burned by it. Someone who can sit with someone's pain and not lose your own direction. You stop being a rescuer. You stop being a fixer. You become something more powerful, a presence. A grounded, focused, deeply aware human being who chooses their response, chooses their energy, chooses their boundaries, and never compromises their values just to make someone else comfortable. You become a stabilizer in a world full of emotional turbulence. But to get here, you have to do the inner work. You have to confront your own emotional triggers. You have to explore where your need to help comes from. You have to ask, am I helping to serve, or am I helping to be needed? Because there's a difference. One builds others. The other destroys you slowly. Strategic empathy means helping only when it's healthy, not when it's ego, not when it's self-sabotage disguised as kindness. Sometimes empathy means letting people struggle, letting them face their lessons, letting them feel the consequences. That's not cruelty, that's wisdom. Because growth doesn't happen in comfort. And if you rescue someone every time they fall, you're not helping them, you're keeping them dependent. Strategic empathy means you care enough to let them walk their path. Even if it's painful to watch, even if they get mad at you, even if they blame you for not saving them, you stay grounded. You trust your intentions. You trust your awareness. You don't get pulled into emotional games. You don't react out of guilt. You don't sacrifice your clarity to avoid confrontation. You remain firm, loving, clear. That's rare. That's powerful. That's the highest level of emotional intelligence. Strategic empathy is a decision, a daily practice. You wake up and choose to feel, but never bleed for what's not yours. You choose to listen, but never shrink to make someone else feel bigger. You choose to care, but never at the cost of your focus. That's who you are now. That's what you're building. The world needs more of this. Not just emotional people, but emotionally intelligent people. Not just kind hearts, but strong minds behind those hearts. Not just sympathy, but strategy. Because when your empathy is backed by strength, you don't just connect with people, you elevate them. You show them what real support looks like, not enabling, not pity, but presence. Truth, strength, boundaries, clarity. That's your edge. That's your gift. Feel everything, but lose nothing. Love deeply, but never lose your center. Walk through fire, but don't become the flame. Stand strong, not because you feel nothing, but because you feel everything and still choose who you are in every moment. That's not weakness. That's power. That's strategic empathy. And that's your superpower now. Chapter 70. Spot the game. Identify manipulation and power plays. There's always a game being played. Some people play it out in the open. Most play it in the shadows. But make no mistake, where there are people, there are power dynamics, influence, leverage, control. And if you can't see the game, you are the game. That's the brutal truth. You will be used, messled, emotionally manipulated, and strategically outmaneuvered by people who smile to your face while plotting behind your back. Not because they're evil, but because it works. Because most people are too naive, too distracted, or too emotionally driven to recognize what's really going on. You want to master social intelligence. Then you have to learn to see past the surface. You have to train yourself to spot the hidden agendas, the subtle shifts in energy, the carefully crafted words designed to push you, corner you, flatter you, or guilt you into a position of weakness. You can't afford to be blind to Lilithian. You can't afford to ignore the power plays happening right in front of you. Because the cost isn't just your pride. It's your peace, your progress, your reputation, and sometimes even your future. Power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it walks in as charm. Sometimes it smiles as kindness. Sometimes it flatters. Sometimes it sympathizes. But behind the performance is always the same goal: control. The game is influence. And the tools are emotion, silence, pressure, deception, or even pity. Manipulation doesn't always feel like an attack. Sometimes it feels like love, like loyalty, like support. That's why it's so effective, because it bypasses your logic and hijacks your emotions. You have to become fluent in reading motive. Don't just listen to words, feel the intent behind them. Ask yourself, why now? Why this tone? What does this person stand to gain from my reaction? When someone compliments you out of nowhere, when someone shares vulnerability a little too early, when someone plays victim over and over, look deeper. What are they positioning for? What are they trying to get you to do, feel, or believe? Start paying attention to patterns. People who manipulate rarely do it once. It's a strategy. It's rehearsed. They use the same stories, the same looks, the same guilt trips over and over, because it works. They've learned that they don't need power. They just need you to give yours away. And you will, if you're not aware. If you're desperate for validation, if you're too focused on being liked, being accepted, being seen as the good one. The truth. Manipulators prey on your emotional blind spots. They find the cracks in your confidence and they push. That's why self-mastery is non-negotiable. If you don't know your triggers, they'll be used against you. If you don't know your fears, they'll be exploited. If you don't know where you're vulnerable, and they'll wrap their influence in whatever form will get through your defenses. They'll act like they're protecting you when they're really isolating you. They'll offer advice that sounds helpful but keeps you stuck. They'll use kindness as a leash, and you'll thank them for it until you wake up one day and realize you've been controlled the whole time. But not anymore. Because now you're learning to spot the game. You're learning to feel the shifts, to see the micro expressions, to hear what's not being said, to question the timing, the tone, the pressure. You don't move emotionally anymore. You move with awareness. You don't get baited into fights you didn't start. You don't take the guilt that isn't yours. You don't accept the favor that comes with invisible strings attached. You slow down, you breathe, you observe. And when the game reveals itself, you don't flinch. Sometimes the game is built on silence, withholding information, keeping you in the dark, making you feel like you're lucky just to be involved. That's control. That's leverage. That's someone protecting their power while making you chase your worth. Don't fall for it. You're not here to beg for respect. You're not here to wait for someone else's approval. You're here to move with strategy, with clarity, with full vision. And you can't do that while you're emotionally dependent on someone who knows exactly how to keep you unbalanced. Sometimes the game is drama, constant crisis, constant chaos, designed to keep you emotionally overwhelmed so you can't see straight. When you're always reacting, you're never thinking clearly. That's the goal. If they can keep you busy managing their mess, you won't notice how much of your power you've handed over. You think you're helping, but you're being drained. You think you're loyal, but you're being used. You think you're solving problems, but you're trapped in a loop. The only way out is to step back, get perspective, and stop reacting. Sometimes the game is guilt. They make you feel like you owe them, like you're the reason they're hurting, like if you don't respond the way they want, you're the villain. It's emotional blackmail disguised as love. They say, "I would do anything for you," but really they mean, "You better do what I say." And if you say no, they play the victim. They act betrayed. They cry louder. They turn others against you. And that's when you need to stay calm. That's when you need to hold the line. Because the moment you let guilt dictate your choices, you lose your grip on your own life. The only way to beat the game is to refuse to play it. You don't react to pressure. You don't explain yourself to people who have already decided how to twist your words. You don't defend yourself against people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You know your truth. You know your vision. You know your worth. And you stop giving discounts to people who only show up when they need something. Spotting the game doesn't make you paranoid. It makes you prepared. It makes you sharp. It makes you impossible to manipulate. People won't like it. They'll call you cold. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're selfish. Let them talk. Let them reveal themselves. Because the louder they scream, the more you see their fear. The fear that their old games don't work on you anymore, and once you stop falling for manipulation, everything changes. You stop wasting energy on people who never had your back. You stop negotiating with liars. You stop explaining your boundaries. You just enforce them. You stop trying to fix broken people who are only pretending to be broken so they can avoid accountability. You step back. You detach. You protect your focus. And you move in silence. There's a point where you no longer need to expose anyone. You just stop feeding them access. You don't argue, you don't confront. You don't explain why you pulled back. You just pull back quietly, consistently, completely. And if they need an explanation, let them sit with their own behavior long enough to figure it out. People who rely on power plays hate clarity, because clarity ruins their leverage. Clarity means you see the strings, you see the angles, you see the pattern, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. You don't hate them for it. You just never trust the mask again. You don't resent them. You just stop giving them the keys to your emotions, your energy, your peace. This is high-level living, high-level thinking, high-level boundaries. You don't just protect your space, you elevate it. You don't just avoid the game, you rise above it. You become someone who is calm under pressure, unshaken by guilt, immune to flattery, and grounded in truth. And in a world full of hidden agendas, that makes you unstoppable. Let them play the game. Let them throw the bait. Let them gossip, flatter, guilt, and twist. You don't bite, you don't blink, you don't fold, because you're not emotionally hungry anymore. You don't need their validation. You don't need to be liked by people who've shown you their tactics. You don't need to be understood by people who are committed to confusion. You just keep moving. From now on, you walk with sharp eyes and a calm soul. You listen twice. You trust once. You respond rarely. And you study always, because you're not here to get played. You're here to lead. You're here to rise. You're here to move with power. Not the kind that controls others, but the kind that can't be controlled. That's the game you play now. And you always win. Chapter 80. Master the mirror. Manage how others perceive you. Perception is reality in the eyes of most people. It doesn't matter who you think you are if the world sees something different. You can be brilliant, disciplined, and full of integrity. But if you don't manage how others perceive you, you will constantly be underestimated, misread, or dismissed. This isn't about pretending. This isn't about performance. It's about alignment, making sure the energy you project reflects the values you stand for. Because whether you like it or not, you are the message before you ever open your mouth. Your posture, your tone, your silence, your presence, it all speaks. And you either master the mirror or let it distort you. people don't see you as you are. They see you as they are, filtered through their own biases, fears, experiences, and assumptions. Your job is not to control their perception completely. You can't. But your responsibility is clarity, not confusion. You don't want to leave your image up to chance. You don't want to walk into rooms without knowing the impact your presence creates. That's how power is lost. That's how influence is wasted. That's how people miss who you really are, because you never learned to master the mirror. Every room you walk into is reading you. Before you speak, they've measured your posture. Before you explain, they've picked up on your tone. Before you clarify, they've drawn their own conclusions. So stop leaving your reputation in the hands of assumption. Start owning how you show up. Walk in with certainty, not arrogance, certainty. Certainty doesn't beg. Certainty doesn't shrink. Certainty doesn't perform. It speaks calmly, it moves with purpose, and it doesn't need to over-explain. That energy shifts perception before you even speak. You don't need to be the loudest to be heard. You just need to be aligned. Every word, every pause, every expression, when it's intentional, people feel it. You can't fake alignment for long. People may not know exactly what's off, but they'll feel it. When your words don't match your actions, when your tone doesn't match your message, when your energy doesn't match your image, they may smile, but they won't trust you. Influence dies in that gap. You want to be clear. Get congruent. You manage perception by mastering presence. Be where you are. Don't look distracted. Don't carry anxiety into the room. Don't look like you're apologizing for taking up space. Stop folding into yourself when you feel challenged. Confidence isn't volume. It's stillness. It's composure. It's the calm that makes people lean in. Be intentional with your eyes. Don't dart around like you're waiting for permission. Look people in the eye. Hold your ground. Speak like you've already earned the right to be in the room. Because you have. The way you dress matters. The way you walk matters. The way you sit matters. Because before anyone hears your words, they read your energy. They read your discipline. They read your effort. Every detail speaks. Are you sharp or sloppy? Are you focused or scattered? Are you someone who respects the room or someone who's trying to be invisible in it? None of this means you have to become fake. It means you become aware. And awareness is the foundation of all power. It's not about controlling others. It's about controlling the frame. The frame people use to view you, and that frame is built by how consistently you show up. You teach people how to treat you by how you present yourself. If you show up chaotic, they'll handle you with caution. If you show up scattered, they'll trust you less. If you show up with your boundaries unclear, they'll test you. People don't rise to your intentions. They respond to your image. Get that image right, and you won't have to beg for respect. It'll be built into how you carry yourself. But remember, there's no power in pretending. Authenticity is still the foundation. You're not here to act. You're here to sharpen. You're not creating a new version of yourself. You're revealing the strongest one, the focused one, the present one, the grounded one. That version doesn't need to chase approval. That version doesn't get pulled out of position. That version moves like it belongs, because it does. And when people feel that alignment, they trust you, they respect you, and they remember you. Perception doesn't just happen in rooms. It happens in silence too, in what you post, in how you respond, in how you carry yourself when no one's watching. Your brand isn't built when people are looking. It's revealed they're not. Are you the same when you're unseen? Are you disciplined when no one's rewarding you? Are you composed when there's no audience to clap for you? Because if you're not, that misalignment will surface. It always does. And people can feel it. They can't always explain it, but they know when something's off. Managing perception also means protecting your energy. Don't let other people shape your image with their noise. If they gossip, stay quiet. If they provoke, stay calm. If they doubt you, stay focused. Let them talk. Let them project. You stay grounded. Because nothing breaks an illusion faster than composure. The more still you remain under pressure, the more people rethink everything they thought about you. They expected reaction. You gave presence. They expected weakness. You gave clarity. That contrast builds power. There will always be people who want to reduce you to what makes them comfortable. They'll see your growth and call it arrogance. They'll see your confidence and call it ego. They'll try to drag you back into the box where they could understand you. Let them. You don't need to explain your evolution to those committed to misunderstanding it. You don't need to argue with the image they created in their heads. You just keep moving, keep refining, keep aligning, because the right people will see it, and the wrong ones don't matter. Sometimes managing perception means knowing when to be silent, when to let your results speak louder than your rebuttals, when to walk away instead of trying to convince people who already made up their minds. Let your consistency speak. Let your discipline be your proof. People are watching even when you think they're not. And while many talk loud, only a few walk quietly and still shift the room when they enter. That's who you are now. That's what you're becoming. You don't need to perform to be powerful. You just need to be intentional. Walk like you matter. Speak like you're clear. Move like your name means something. Not out of ego, but out of respect. Because when you respect yourself enough to manage the energy you bring, people notice, they feel it, and more importantly, they remember it. That's how reputation is built, not overnight, but daily, through every interaction, every word, every silence, every moment where you chose clarity over chaos, discipline over desperation, presence over performance. There will be times when people project their fears onto you, when they assume things based on your strength, when they try to label you, diminish you, dismiss you. That's when you remember. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to live in alignment with who you know you are. Perception is powerful, yes, but not more powerful than purpose. And your purpose is not to be like, it's to be real, to be strong, to be grounded, to be impactful. So, master the mirror, stand in front of it and ask yourself, does what I see reflect who I truly am? Does the energy I bring into rooms match the values I carry in private? Does my image reflect my standards, my focus, my identity? If not, adjust it, sharpen it, align it, because when the inner matches the outer, people can't deny your presence. They may not always agree with you, but they'll feel your authenticity. And in a world full of noise, that's rare. That's unforgettable. You're not just here to survive the game. You're here to shape it. And you do that by managing perception like a master, not by pretending, not by pleasing, but by presenting yourself with integrity, intention, and impact. That's the art of the mirror. And now it belongs to you. Chapter 90. Speak with purpose, use words that command respect. Words carry weight. Every sentence you speak either earns you respect or costs you power. Most people talk to be heard, but when you're moving with intent, you talk to lead, to guide, to influence. Words are not fillers. They are weapons, tools, instruments of impact. And if you don't choose them deliberately, they'll betray you. They'll make you sound unsure, small, scattered, even when your mind is sharp. That's why you must speak with purpose. Speak to move things. Speak to be remembered. Speak to leave no doubt about who you are and what you stand for. Weak language is a habit, and it creeps in quietly. You don't notice it at first. The I think, that maybe, the I'm not sure but slips into your vocabulary, and with it, your power starts to leak. You soften your truth to make others comfortable. You pad your statement. You downplay your certainty because you're afraid of intimidating someone. But let's get something straight. Your voice isn't here to make people comfortable. It's here to speak truth. And truth, when it's pure and clear, doesn't need permission. When you speak, eliminate the fluff. Stop hiding behind long-winded explanations. Say what you mean. Then stop talking. That pause, that silence after your words, that's where the real power sits. Because when you speak and then wait, people feel it. They process it. They take you seriously. You've said enough. You don't need to over-convince. You don't need to keep explaining yourself to those who aren't even listening with the intent to understand. Speak with clarity, then step back and let the weight of your words do the work. There's a difference between talking and communicating. Talking is cheap. Everyone does it. Communication is art. Communication is about impact. It's about knowing your audience, reading the room, and delivering a message that not only lands but lingers. You don't have to raise your voice to raise the energy. You don't have to dominate the conversation to lead it. When your energy is calm, your words cut deeper. When your voice is measured, your message hits harder. Because there's a discipline to purposeful speech. It's not loud, it's lethal. But before you can speak with power, you have to believe in your own voice. That's where most people lose the battle. They try to sound confident without being confident. They rehearse lines, memorize phrases, and mimic tone, but it all falls apart because the foundation is weak. If you don't believe your words, no one else will. So the real work isn't just in practicing how to speak. It's in building the internal certainty behind the speech. You speak with power when your soul agrees with your message. You speak with clarity when your conscience is clean. Stop trying to say what sounds right. Say what is real. Say what needs to be said, even if your voice shakes, and the more you speak truthfully, the stronger that voice becomes. Not because the world gets easier, but because you get bolder. Purposeful speech isn't about being perfect. It's about being real, being intentional, and refusing to let fear dilute your message. You're not here to echo noise. You're here to carry signal. Precision, strength, certainty. That's what separates leaders from followers. The way you speak becomes your signature. Are you vague or direct? Are you emotional or composed? Are you reactive or intentional? Every time you open your mouth, you're telling the world who you are, even when you don't realize it. That's why silence is powerful. That's why less is more. The more selective you become with your words, the more powerful those words become. People start to listen when they know you don't speak just to fill space. You speak to shift perspective. You speak to deliver value. Watch your tone. It's not just what you say. It's how you say it. Your tone is the music beneath the message. If the tone doesn't match the truth, your credibility breaks. If you speak powerfully but sound desperate, people hear the desperation. If you speak confidently but carry bitterness, people feel the resentment. And if you speak calmly but carry arrogance, people sense the superiority. You can't hide energy with words. You have to align your energy with your message. That's when the tone becomes undeniable. That's when the message becomes unforgettable. This doesn't mean you talk all the time. Purposeful speakers often speak less because they observe more. They listen before they talk. They study the conversation. They find the gaps. Then they strike, clean, precise, without wasted motion. This is what powerful communicators understand. Timing is everything. You don't just say the right thing. You say it at the right moment, in the right tone, to the right person. And when you do, that moment becomes impact. It becomes clarity. It becomes influence. There are moments in life when the way you speak will define how the world treats you. In meetings, in negotiations, in conflict, in opportunity. And in those moments, every hesitation, every nervous tick, every unnecessary word becomes a leak in your power. That's why you train. You train to be clear. You train to be calm. You train to speak like you've already earned the respect in the room. Because if you don't carry that belief, the room will not give it to you. You must also learn to speak truth in conflict, not with aggression, not with passive silence, but with presence. Presence that says, I know who I am. I know what I believe. I don't need to yell to be heard. That's what real communication looks like under pressure. You don't let emotions hijack your clarity. You don't trade truth for temporary comfort. You stay in the pocket. You stay grounded. And you speak facts with firmness. That's strength. That's leadership. That's respect earned through composure. People will test your words. They'll test your boundaries. They'll test how far they can push you with guilt, with charm, with noise. Don't match their energy. Set your own. Speak your line and hold it with apology, without retreat. Let your words reflect your inner standard. If they don't respect it, that's their choice. But don't dilute yourself to win favor. Don't water down your truth to stay liked. That's how voices die. That's how influence dissolves. You also have to know when not to speak. That's the other half of mastery. Not every attack deserves a rebuttal. Not every insult deserves your reaction. You don't need to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Let silence carry your clarity. Let absence speak your boundaries. Let stillness reflect your confidence. Because sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. Speak when it's time to build. Speak when it's time to defend what matters. Speak when the room needs direction, when the truth has gone missing, when lies are parading as leadership. That's when your voice becomes a weapon of light, of structure, of reality. You don't raise your voice to overpower people. You raise your message to inspire them, to align them, to wake them up. That's power used with purpose. Your words can cut or they can heal. They can divide or they can lead. They can create clarity or cause confusion. The power is in your mouth, but the discipline is in your mind. Train both. Keep your thoughts sharp, your emotions grounded, and your message clear. So when the time comes to speak, you don't just contribute, you command. You don't speak to impress, you speak to express. You speak to serve the moment. You speak because your words are rooted in truth, sharpened by experience, and delivered with conviction. That's what people remember, not how fancy your vocabulary is, but how real you are, how clear, how grounded. That's what earns trust. That's what builds legacy. Speak like your voice matters, because it does. Speak like people are listening, because they are. Speak like your words create shifts, because they will. This is your voice now. Sharp, precise, undeniable. Chapter 100. Lead the room. Become a presence people can't. Leadership is not a title. It's not a position. It's not the corner office or the loudest voice. Leadership is presence. It's the energy that walks into a room before you speak and lingers after you've gone. It's the silent authority that makes people sit up, pay attention, and listen. Not because you demand it, but because your presence commands it. You don't lead people by controlling them. You lead them by influencing the environment around you. And that begins by becoming a presence no one can ignore. You know, when someone like that walks in, the room shifts. Not because they're flashy, not because they say something outrageous, but because they move with certainty. They move with clarity. They are intentional. They don't seek attention, but attention finds them. That's not luck. That's built. That's developed. That's mastered through discipline, emotional control, and the kind of internal stability most people never take time to develop. When you walk in with that kind of presence, people feel it in their gut before they process it in their minds. Most people walk into a room hoping to be liked, hoping to be accepted, but leaders walk in with purpose. They don't chase connection, they radiate it. They don't need the room to validate them. They validate themselves before they step in. And when you do that, you become undeniable. You're not loud, but you're clear. You're not aggressive, but you're immovable. You're not performative, but you're powerful. Because presence is not about noise, it's about control, inner control, self-possession. Knowing who you are so deeply that no environment can shake you. To lead the room, you must learn how to manage the emotional temperature. Every room has one. Some rooms are full of anxiety. Some are tense. Some are full of ego. Some are unsure, unstable, distracted. And most people get pulled into the mood of the room. They match the energy. But not you. You walk in as the thermostat, not the thermometer. You don't adjust to the room. You reset it. You bring calm to the chaos, focus to the noise, direction to the confusion. And you do it with intention. Leadership presence is not about knowing everything. It's about knowing what matters. It's about making people feel safe, not coddled, but grounded. People follow clarity. People crave certainty. In a world full of noise, someone who moves with quiet conviction stands out. You don't have to speak 100 words. You just need to speak one word with weight. You don't have to take up all the space. You just need to take your space fully, completely, without hesitation. That alone creates influence. And yes, people will test your presence. They'll try to challenge you. They'll try to ignore you. They'll try to dominate you. That's where real presence is revealed. It's not how you enter the room. It's how you hold it when the pressure rises, when the energy shifts, When someone throws shade or tries to undercut you, that's when you lean in calmly without flinching. You don't raise your voice. You don't take the bait. You hold the room with your energy, not your ego. And when you do that, people recognize it, sometimes subconsciously. But they feel it. You become a reference point, a pillar. But this level of presence doesn't come from pretending. It comes from preparation, from building yourself in silence, from becoming someone who doesn't need to dominate because you've already mastered yourself. You're not trying to prove. You're not trying to impress. You're just being, fully, authentically, relentlessly, and people feel that. It's the difference between walking into a room and hoping to be seen versus walking into a room and knowing you can change it with one decision, one sentence, one raised eyebrow, one pause. Presence means listening more than speaking, observing more than reacting, sensing more than reacting. It's an intuitive command of the room because you're not trapped in your own head. You're present, and presence is magnetic. People trust those who are grounded. People follow those who don't flinch under pressure. People remember those who speak when it matters, not just to be heard. And if you want to lead, that's who you must become, not just someone with the right words, but someone with the right weight behind those words. That weight comes from consistency, from showing up as the same version of yourself in every room, every environment. From being emotionally stable, mentally prepared, physically intentional. You don't just walk in and try to feel confident. You are confident because you've earned it. You've done the work. You've faced the mirror. You've sharpened your discipline, refined your values, trimmed the fat off your identity. And now, when you speak, when you look someone in the eye, when you set the tone, it's real, it's rooted, and people can tell the difference. You don't beg for influence. You build it through integrity, through presence, through posture, through discipline. You walk tall not because you're trying to look powerful, but because you are no longer willing to shrink for anyone's comfort. You walk straight not because you want to be noticed, but because you've straightened your soul and now your body reflects that alignment. And in doing so, you become more than a person in the room. You become the standard. This kind of leadership isn't loud. It's subtle. It's strategic. It's the nod you give when everyone else is panicking. It's the silence you hold when everyone else is overreacting. It's the moment when the whole room turns toward you, not because they were told to, but because they sense deep down that you're the one who won't fold, that you're the one who sees clearly, that you're the one they'd rather follow than challenge. To lead the room, you must also learn to hold space for others, not dominate them, not shrink them, but guide them. A true leader makes others feel stronger in their presence, not weaker. They pull people up by example, by composure, by showing what it looks like to be disciplined, clear, respectful, and sharp without ever being arrogant. You make the room better just by being in it, not because of what you say, but because of how you move, how you treat people, how you hold your power without abusing it. Leadership is not about control, it's about direction. When you walk in, the room should feel a shift, a new tone, a clearer rhythm, a more intentional flow, not because you took over, but because you anchored it. People feel safe in your certainty. They feel challenged by your standard, and they rise in your presence because you refuse to lower the bar just to be liked. That's the impact of true presence. That's the ripple effect of real leadership. But let's be clear, none of this happens by accident. You don't become a presence people can't ignore just by showing up. You build it in the dark, in the quiet hours, when no one's clapping, when no one's watching. You build it when you hold yourself accountable, even when it would be easier to make excuses. You build it when you resist reacting and choose instead to reflect. You build it when you speak truth in moments when silence would be easier. You build it when you walk into every room not with entitlement, but with earned confidence. When you lead the room, you also lead the narrative. You shape what people feel without forcing it. That's mastery. That's energy intelligence. That's emotional dominance, not over people, but over yourself. And when you hold yourself like that, the room aligns. People start mirroring your energy. They calm down because you are calm. They focus because you are focused. They respect the space because you respect it. That's leadership without words. That's influence without effort. That's what presence does. So the next time you walk into a room, don't just think about who's there. Don't just scan for validation. Ask yourself, what tone am I bringing? What standard am I setting? What energy am I creating just by being here? And then move like that. Stand like that. Speak like that. Because whether they tell you or not, they're watching. And if you've done the work, they won't just watch. They'll follow. Be the presence that commands without noise. Be the leader that stands without flexing. Be the person that rooms shift for, not because of your ego, but because of your alignment. That's what it means to lead the room. That's what it means to live with power. That's what you're built for. And that's who you are now.